Sonnet 154. The little love god laying once asleep laid by his side his heart-inflaming brand, whilst many nymphs that vowed chaste life to keep came tripping by, but in her maiden hand the fairest votary took up that fire which many legions of true hearts had warmed, and so the general of hot desire was sleeping by a virgin hand disarmed. This brand she quenched in cool well by, which from love's fire took heat perpetual, growing a bath and healthful remedy for men diseased. But I, my mistress thrall, came there for cure, and this by that I prove. Love's fire heats water, water cools not love. That was Sonnet 154, otherwise known as the final sonnet. I am Mark Chatterley, and I am, as always, joined by my fellow sonnet adventurer.
Sonnet adventurer, I like that. Thierry Hearless.
And we are in video.
We are in video. You can actually see us, people. Hello. Our pretty faces.
We say people can see us. People who are listening to the normal podcast can't see us.
No.
Sorry.
No. I guess we could always put this on the feed as a video, but it might screw with some people's bandwidth if suddenly there's like a 300 megabyte download popping up.
They talked a long time on that last one.
Subscribers just downloading it over 3G and just that's your data gone. Sorry, guys.
Maybe we should describe ourselves. I am sat in front of my lovely microphone. I've got Darth Vader holding some whiteboard pens over one shoulder, and over the other shoulder I've got art prints from the various audiobooks that In-Ear produces. And I'm very scruffy and hairy and haven't had a shave in forever, and haven't had my hair cut since it was all cut off in September. So this is what 6, 7, 8 months of growth looks like.
Can you actually see? Because in my thumbnail you can't see my hair.
You've got fluffy hair.
Yeah, that's because I showered today. It was.
You say that as if you don't usually do it.
Yeah, Christmas came early this year. I thought now that I'm with female, I would wash quarterly instead of biannually.
I don't remember that being a sonnet we've come across with. Now that I'm in a relationship, I shall wash more often.
I don't. Yeah, they probably didn't wash at all, or swim in a river, or in Cupid's well, and perfume.
Well, yeah, that's what they kind of did, wasn't it? That's why perfume was so valued. It was the I'm not washing, just spraying myself with perfume. It was like the oldie worldy version of Lynx body spray or Axe body spray if you're European.
Yeah, it's oh god.
Teenage boys after they've done football practice.
Spraying themselves. They had the Lynx 2-in-1 or whatever it was called, where you were supposed to use two different ones at the same time because, I don't know, one Lynx doesn't reek enough. So you just spray yourself with the two of them, just stand on a beach, and then just all the women come rushing towards you, and yeah, that's how it works. What you want. That is how it works.
Women are driven by their nose. It's a well-known fact.
Yeah. The few times in my life I used Lynx, I couldn't walk through the town centre. They're just clinging to me. so now I'm on. I don't even know.
Get off me! I knew I shouldn't have worn the Lynx. Ah.
Well, I actually have deodorant lying right next to me at the moment. It's fit for a king. It was
wow, fit for a king.
But it's Refresh and Revive deodorant body spray. Al fresco.
Wow, definitely a king would wear that.
Yeah. Apparently they are quite nice. I haven't used up my normal shampoo yet. I'm not one of those people who has 16 different bottles of shampoo and deodorant around the bathroom.
You're not wild enough to open 2 different shampoos at once. No.
I don't know why. I don't need it.
Because you can mix and match. It's like when you're doing the dishes. When you wash up the dishes by hand, you buy 2 different coloured washing up liquids so that you can squirt a bit of each in, and it makes the first bit of doing dishes a little bit fun because you can kind of make patterns on the bottom of the bowl with the 2 different coloured liquids. Or is that just me?
You're a strange man.
I have to make things
You are
fun
a
and
very
interesting,
strange
otherwise I won't
man.
do them. It's like when I mow the lawn. I have to mow the lawn in geometric patterns because otherwise it's just utterly boring. Anyway, Sonnet 154. We should actually talk about Sonnet 154.
We should. Apparently people can't see me right.
They can't
I
see
got
you
a
right.
message saying you can only see me from my nose. Which is weird
Okay.
because on here I can see my whole face.
I can
I've
see your whole
shifted it
face
now.
too. Hang
But
on. Let me have a quick look at the feed. This is highly technical. I'm playing the feed while while doing it. Oh, I can hear myself. That's not good. I'm just jumping back to see if I can see you. No, on the YouTube, I can see you as I do in the window.
that's good.
Hmm.
My wonderful
Sorry, don't know
face.
what. Well, yes, it is. Was that from your other half going? I want to be able to see
No,
you.
no, my other half isn't watching. She doesn't like me enough.
Oh,
No, she's in
I
work.
barely like you enough.
That's you're stuck with me. Well, you were stuck with me.
Not anymore. Let's talk about the sonnet. What do you think about this sonnet?
It's pretty much exactly the same as 153. He really ran out of ideas here. I mean, I have the quarto version here as well on the site that I'm using, and I quite like that he actually finished with the word finis. Just, I'm done now. The end. Stop annoying me. Which just
He ended with what word? Sorry.
finis, the Latin word for the end.
Really? Oh, okay. So
That's below the sonnet. It's not part of the sonnet, but below the sonnet, it apparently just said finis.
I'm done now. 154
yeah.
done. I wonder. I mean, was that his aim from the beginning to write 154 of them, or did he just kind of get to this point and go, "Oh, I'm totally fed up with sonnets"?
I don't know. Since they weren't really ever meant to be published, which we've said countless times before, but I don't know if he had a plan or if he just wrote. I don't.
Because it does seem to be calling it in a little bit.
I haven't seen anything about 100.
The final two being such similar in terms of theme, and in fact, I mean, they are two sonnets on exactly the same subject, really.
Yeah, it's almost identical. Cupid laid by his brand and fell asleep on the 153, and only 154. The little love god lying once asleep, and it's just like that's repetition.
Yeah, I guess the only difference is in 153, it's the mistress that relights the brand, the love brand, whereas in
That's true.
154 it never extinguishes. But
yeah,
that's quite a small distinction. I really like the whole idea of this sonnet more than the last one, I guess, which is the idea that the love brand, the power of love can heal, and it creates this healing water, but it can't heal you from love sickness. It can't heal you from the sickness of love, which is absolutely wonderful. So love's fire heats water, water cools not love. I thought that was a very good way to end the series, because it's talking about love as an obsession as well. He wants to be cured of this obsession, but something transitory, something earthly like water just won't fix it. It's something deeper than that. It's something more mystic, I guess.
it's kind of like I don't know. I almost want to say it's too little, too late. That it's this wanting to get rid of the obsession should have happened 100 sonnets ago. It's just. It's kind of like you watch a TV show or a movie, and then 10 minutes before the end, the writers just kind of realize that they need a twist, and it's just and the twist doesn't make sense because it obviously was never planned, and it's just like, oh yeah, no, an obsession is bad. I need to get rid of this now, please.
Are you comparing Shakespeare to J.J. Abrams? Is that what you're doing right now?
Yeah, J.J. Abrams and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, there was a wonderful episode of Shield the other night that I almost went mental on Twitter about, but it would have taken far too many tweets. But there's this wonderful bit in it, which is meant to be a payoff for the previous 10 episodes, and it's meant to be this massive emotional payoff. Means nothing, because at no point in those previous 10 episodes have they endeared you to the character or made you sympathize or even like the character that much. In Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they could walk into a building, have the building blow up, kill every single one of them, and I wouldn't care. That's how bad they have written this series. I don't give a damn.
I don't know if you've seen Captain America, but that's kind of what happened. That's the plot of Captain America. Blow all the shit up! And I just went, I don't care. There was just nothing.
And I suppose that actually does mirror in the sonnet. I don't care what happens to Shakespeare's character in the sonnets anymore. He's already shown himself to be a very despicable, almost stalkerish kind of character. I don't care if he's in pain, or I don't care if he's suffering because of this this obsession.
You've never seen him as
kind.
I guess you can care about characters that are evil but suffering if it's done right, and their story is told in a good way, but it hasn't. Shakespeare has just been a massive twat.
Yeah, and I don't think that's not saying that Shakespeare isn't a good writer. I think that was his intention. It has to have been his intention to do that, to take us through the mindset of someone who's so lovesick they are essentially willing to strip down their own person and rebuild themselves in a way to serve someone else. And that's what happened, especially in the Fair Youth sonnets. At one point, the Shakespeare character dismantled his own personality, became a shell, and then filled himself back up in the way he thought the Fair Youth would want him to be.
Yeah.
And I suppose this is that's my big takeaway from this, is if anyone ever talks to me about these sonnets being about love, they're not about love. They're about obsession, and they're about almost brainwashing and stalking and obsession with love to the point where you lose all sense of self. It's actually quite a dark series of sonnets, but quite interestingly written in a very kind of love flowery kind of way.
Yeah, I can see that. It just...
You're not sure you agree?
It's still not... to use another TV, I've been watching Game of Thrones, and there is... The king in Game of Thrones is pure evil. There is just... The show, or the writer, I haven't read the books, and I'm not going to because I don't really like the writing of the show all that much in the first place. But that character is just pure evil. Everything he does is evil. And they don't give him a single redeeming quality. But
I wonder who you could be talking about.
It's done in a way where it's actually good. I mean, you cannot not hate the character. He's absolutely despicable. But he is evil in such a pure way that it's very compelling.
Yeah,
and Shakespeare hasn't really... Yeah, he's fallen short of that. He's like... He wants to be that man who is just completely obsessed. And it doesn't feel... He's kind of hovering around the 80% mark, I
wonder if it's because the character you're referring to takes joy in being that evil. That's what motivates this character, is joy. And he's not evil because it's evil. He's evil because doing
this who he is.
Yeah, it brings him joy to do that. And when you learn of his history, it kind of makes sense why he doesn't have the most straight moral compass. But in this, Shakespeare's character doesn't derive joy from his obsession. In fact, his obsession causes him pain, yet he still seeks it out.
Yeah,
So there
I'm
were
not
those...
saying it should have been done the same way. I'm just saying he is still, as much as it causes him pain, at several points throughout this series, he was on his way out, and then he's forced himself back into the obsession.
Yes, yeah.
And maybe he is a masochist as opposed to Joffrey in Game of Thrones being a sadist. Maybe it is painful, but he loves the pain. But that also doesn't really... I don't know. It doesn't really feel like he's gone as far as he could have, and that just...
It would have been nice to see a resolution, I guess, to it. Because on both of the obsessions, the Fair Youth and the Dark Lady, there was no resolution to it. We still don't know really what happened with the Fair Youth. That just kind of petered out and died. There was no... The Fair Youth has moved on and lived his life.
Then it ends with a white space.
Yes, yeah. In fact, yeah, there were two empty lines in a sonnet. So it just ended. And then the Dark Lady sonnets ended in a space where he was just kind of going, it's your fault, you make me love you. And there was no resolution. Either Shakespeare's character never came to terms with what drives him to make these obsession-made relationships, nor did we ever see a reaction from the Fair Youth or the Dark Lady to that kind of, what the hell are you doing? You're just someone I bumped into last Tuesday. What? We've made this whole relationship? What?
It's fair enough if some Tories also don't get a conclusion, but some stories don't get a conclusion, and some stories don't need a conclusion, and some stories are actually better for not having it. But this final sonnet, kind of going back to what I said earlier, the twist, it kind of tries to fit in that resolution, and it goes, oh yeah, by the way, my obsession won't be cured by this. Bye guys. It's just a... I almost
but it doesn't
wish
get
that
cured.
wasn't... Yeah, but he's kind of...
I suppose he does try to cure it that way.
I'm not saying he... My point was he's kind of just throwing that in as like a last... Also, water can't cure this obsession. It's...
Yeah, but I suppose
curing the obsession has never really been
an aim of his.
He has never actively tried to cure the obsession, and at the end he just kind of goes, "Oh yeah, water doesn't do the job," and just like.
Although saying that he was more upset with the Dark Lady than he was with the Fair Youth. With the Fair Youth, I got the impression he didn't mind being in love with the Fair Youth, whereas with the Dark Lady, he had real deep-seated issues with being in love with someone that the rest of society perceived as ugly, and that seemed to be more of it than the race point of view. With the Fair Youth, he was happy being in love with because objectively anyone looking at the Fair Youth could see that he was the personification of beauty. But the Dark Lady, everyone thinks she's a munter. Why am I in love with her? Which is I think slightly... I quite liked that contrast anyway. But this isn't just water. This is magical water made by Cupid's love brand.
Love brand, yeah.
But I suppose you have to take that in the context that even... Well, we're quite a superstitious culture now, and religion plays a huge part of our culture. We're just about to go into the Easter holidays now, which is fundamentally a Christian/pagan holiday. So that's still in our culture, but back in Shakespeare's time, it would have been even more so, and there would have been more identification with Cupid and nymphs and all of the imagery he stuffed into this sonnet. So the idea of this magic water that was created by a virgin nymph essentially de-virgifying herself by thrusting this hot brand into some cool water in a very sexual way. That special magical water made by the nymph and Cupid and magic wasn't enough to stop this love. I think it's quite a powerful message. Maybe it's just been eroded slightly in time because we don't tend to attribute love to Cupid and don't believe in nymphs anymore.
Yeah, some people probably do.
That's probably true.
I find it an interesting idea that nothing, not even the power of, I don't know if Cupid was a god, or whatever he was, magical higher beings don't have enough power to stop the love is a very interesting idea to just kind of almost have it as an afterthought.
Yeah, and I suppose that's my biggest criticism too, is like you say, they're just tacked onto the end, these two sonnets. You're right, it's as if Shakespeare's got to this point and gone, oh, I need something else. This story needs, this big epic arch needs something else. Oh, well, I'll throw in a couple of sonnets about mysticism and how even that can't destroy the love. It does kind of come out of the blue.
And just tucked on to the end, just, I don't know. I don't want to say pointless, but it just, why bother at this point?
Wow, that's quite a strong view. I don't know if I quite agree with that. I quite like them as a way of summing up the sonnets. I think I would have been happier getting a resolution with the actual characters involved rather than this mystical woo-woo stuff at the end. And I think you're right that this would have been more powerful had it been seeded through the rest of the sonnets. Had oh my gosh, we're going to end up talking about Doctor Who again. Just throwing this in at the end as a big look. It must have been deep, meaningful love because even the god of love or Cupid couldn't change it. It is a bit pathetic. That should have been seeded through this idea of maybe trying to get a cure, and the character taking different steps to try and fix his obsession would have been quite good. But it didn't happen. We're criticising Shakespeare. This is probably not a good way to go.
That's what it's always led to after 18 months.
That's a point worth addressing. We've been doing this for 18 months.
I wrote somewhere on Facebook just saying it feels like a long and a short time simultaneously. It's like on the one hand you just kind of go 18 months is a really bloody long time, but also it feels like we started last September, not or October, whenever it was.
Yeah. We've had 2 Christmases. We had to do 2 sort of massive recording sessions to get over Christmas and stuff like that. It's very odd. And last week, so we've had a gap of a week or 2 between recording 153 and this one because we wanted to do this one live. And the last couple of Thursdays we have just been texting each other going, it's very odd we're not going to spend 2 hours on the phone to each other today.
Yeah. It's got to be. We need another podcast, Mark. People still haven't given us
suggestions.
Well, people have given us ideas, but
not usable ones. Not
usable ones.
I think you should talk about sex toys. Yet that's not a usable podcast idea.
No, not for in the brand. There probably is a market for that, but not for.
Inia presents Best Male Sex Toys of 2013. No, not good.
No. Mark and Thierry Skyping someday, Skyping Thursdays.
Oh dear. It's really interesting. I suppose a good question, a question I've been trying to ponder for the past couple of weeks is, if Shakespeare was alive now, would he be considered the master writer that he is, having been alive 400 years ago?
That is a good question. I don't.
It's quite hard because I'm not hugely up on modern written poets. I'm not a huge fan of modern written poetry compared to modern spoken poetry. But And that's a huge thing I saw on my creative writing degree. It was absolutely brilliant when I did it. Is you get all these people on the first day, and then the lecturer would go, "So, which of you want to be poets?" And about 7 people would put their hands up, and then they would go, "Oh, so which modern poets do you particularly like?" And not one of them could ever name a modern poet. And it's just like you've got to at least have an interest in the field of trying to make a career out of, surely.
Yeah, the problem is it's not. Poetry isn't cool. It's not.
It isn't cool. Poetry isn't cool.
And I say that as a poet. It's not. People don't give a damn about poetry anymore. There's not, and those people who do, they tend to read the old ones. They tend to read Shakespeare, Eliot, all those kind of Browning, both Brownings. It's not really.
Yeah, the classic.
It's all about the J.K. Rowling and the Dan Brown, not so much anymore, thank goodness. But
yeah, poets have
Neil
never.
Gaiman, all those kind of.
Poets never had been put on that same pedestal. We're moving into, which is quite nice. This is this is very off topic anyway, but we're moving into a world again which respects writers, but we've kind of gone too far. So back in the 80s, if you watch TV, you used to see who the writer was at the beginning of a show. So the BBC had a regular half-hour drama slot and a regular half-hour comedy slot, and you'd get the writer's name at the beginning of the show because it mattered that Victoria Wood had written another half-hour sitcom or half-hour, comedy, and that mattered. And then we moved very recently into a time when the writer's name was at the end after the director and after the main actors because they were less important. And now we've moved very much modern times into this is a Stephen Moffat show, yeah, but we've taken the writers and put them on this massive pedestal now so that there can only be 2 or 3 big names in writing.
Yeah, I had that with, and then sometimes that's not even. I know with Stephen Moffat, Neil Gaiman wrote 2 Doctor Who episodes
so far. One of them was good, and one of them was pants.
Yeah, that was the problem. It was like, was it the first one?
First one was when,
TARDIS.
where the TARDIS comes to life, and
yeah, it just.
It had some emotional parts.
Yeah, but you kind of think, oh, I'm not a particular fan of Neil Gaiman, but I know that he does good work, but it's just I'm not into fantasy and that kind of world genre kind of, so I'm not gonna religiously follow him and read all his stuff.
Yeah.
But you kind of watch that episode, and they drummed up so much PR around the fact that Neil Gaiman wrote this episode. And then you watch it, and you go, yeah, this could have been an RTD episode. It's like...
And I think Russell T Davies may have done it better as well.
Probably.
But his second episode was atrocious, so bad on so many levels. It had those 2 child actors in it. It was the Cyberman one with the little actor who's the king or the prince.
With
Cybermen.
Yeah, the guy who played the Ewok in Star Wars. I can't remember his name now.
And it had these 2 child actors in it who were useless, and literally to the point where I think they must have rewritten the script on set because after the first couple of scenes, all they did was just stand in the corner. Don't say anything. Just stand there and look sullen. It was really funny. But I wonder whether Shakespeare would be seen in that kind of light. Would he be a superstar writer today? And I'm not sure he would be, mainly because if you take these sonnets, they are dealing with, I suppose whether you'd argue that you'd have to contemporize what he was writing, but for what we've been saying for the past couple of sonnets is that Shakespeare comes across very much as a nice guy, one of those internet nice guys where...
Yeah, fedora wearing beard necks.
Yeah, that, women need a man to... Women's place is below a man. Women should answer to a man. They should never take the lead in relationship, and that's very much how these sonnets have run. And it would be a very, I think, if more people realised that's what the sonnets were about to some extent, they wouldn't have the position in contemporary kind of idolatry that they do have.
Yeah. It just, I don't think Shakespeare might not be. It's the question: would the writings now be considered as great if he wrote them now, or would Shakespeare as an author be able to thrive as much as he did back then? Because those are two different questions. Because I don't think if he wrote the sonnets today, or any of his plays, there might be a breakout there. I don't know, Hamlet, King Lear. There might be a play that kind of puts him on the scene in the theatre world. If it was that exact play. But if he lived today, and, well, in both scenarios he would be living today, but if he lived today and just was an author who wrote new stuff today, I think he could be, because he's obviously, he's a very talented writer, and he brought a lot of the words and expressions we use today in English. He invented those or brought them over from Latin or French or other languages. So if he lived today, he could very well be a defining author. He could be one of the greats.
I think I wonder if this. So the idea that Shakespeare invented a lot of language, we don't know if he did invent the language or whether he was just the first popular author to use what was in the common tongue. Because Shakespeare was in a very interesting position that he was a privileged person in society. He was the son of a tanner, which gave him free public school education in Stratford, because the tanner was a respected trade. So he got to go to public school and get educated well above the normal students, normal kids of his age. But also, he wasn't ever, when he was younger, he didn't come from a massive land-owning family. He was very lucky that he was able to leverage his dad's position as a tanner to get the education. So he spanned both the common people world and the higher class world, which is why a lot of people don't think he wrote his stuff. And because a commoner could never write this stuff. It must have been Francis Bacon, mustn't it? Because he was a lord and a sir, and it couldn't have been this tanner's son. That's ridiculous. But so there is a question about whether the language was invented by Shakespeare or whether he was just the first person to put what was in use by the common people into text. Well, because the higher horty-torty writers of the time wouldn't have ever been exposed to that language. But even so, that bodes well for now in the sense that it would suggest that he's very flexible with language and very good at taking common vernacular terms and translating them into higher class media.
He wouldn't. If he did write today, I would see him more as. I can't think of another writer. If
you ever seen Attack the Block?
Man Booker Prize today. I wouldn't see him as a literary writer. But I also can't see him as a Dan Brown, and I can't quite think of a writer who would be.
Have you ever seen Attack the Block? It's a UK movie.
I've seen the trailer, but I missed the film.
Very, very good. It's set on a housing estate in East London, I believe. So very kind of bottom of the rung,
kind of.
Lots of gang kind of related stuff going on, and it's got the kids in the area, and they all speak in that kind of ganglandy way. I kind of almost had to have subtitles on to understand what they were saying, because I'm not from that world at all. But aliens attack, and it's very funny, and they fight them off. Very, very well done, because it bridges that gap between a very specific common vernacular and brings it into a wider audience. But I think that's written by either Adam or Joe from Adam and Joe, which was kind of a UK
Oh,
duo.
Adam Buxton and Joe.
Someone else, and I think it's written by one of them. And I would consider, I think Shakespeare, if he was alive nowadays, would operate in a kind of world like that. Him, Adam and Joe, and Charlie Brooker, those kind of people who are quite satirical and yet span more than one social class.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess in comedy there are quite a few. I know stand-up comedy or comedy writers, there's quite a few of those that are like John Bishop, the Scouser kind of very rough kind of shipyard kind of background city in very very much working class place. Or Lee Mack is somewhere not the traditional kind of London and the South East, well educated, Eton, always had money kind of background. So yeah, maybe he would be. He did write good comedies. Shakespeare did. So
he did, and
maybe that would be his market.
And it's interesting how Shakespeare has been appropriated by the higher classes in the modern world. He's seen as this very academic, and this is partly why we started this podcast, because I wanted to look at the sonnets from a non-academic point of view, because Shakespeare never really wrote intending it to be studied like that. He wrote for the common people. It was designed, these plays were designed to keep drunk, bawdy men interested and something to do in the evening. That's the kind of audience, and I get annoyed that he keeps getting put up on this pedestal. So I kind of like the idea that he would be a comedian who didn't go to Oxford. I think that would be a very nice place for Shakespeare to sit in the modern world. And it also, because his stuff has been appropriated by the higher class nowadays, and it gets studied over a lot, people get the wrong idea about what these things are. Like we talked about a couple of times, the sonnets I've heard it a lot. The sonnets are the ultimate love poems in history. Well, they're not about love; they're about obsession.
No.
And you get about Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet is a love story between a young boy and a young girl. No, it's not. Firstly, the full title is The Tragedy of Romeo and Juliet, which should give you a hint as to what it's about.
Yeah, it's a tragedy. God damn it, they're not.
And it's about what happens when you deny your child something, when you let a silly feud get in the way of childish lust and obsession. So the thing that drives Romeo and Juliet together is their families telling them they can't be together. And they only go as far as they do because it's a taboo, because it's had sanctions put on it.
Their family tries to stop them,
And the more their family tries to stop them, and the more people try to dissuade them, the more it drives Romeo and Juliet to the ultimate end,
it creates a desperation because, well, I mean, from when they first meet at the party, they just, I don't know, they really fancy each other and they want to fuck.
Yeah.
And they kind of, they go from that to just through their family history, just being pushed into the desperation where death is ultimately the only way out. And it's not even, neither of them wants to die. That's really,
because they're both trying to do it.
It's even more tragic because
Because I think at the beginning of Romeo and Juliet, isn't Romeo talking about some other bird, some other girl?
Yeah.
And I said bird.
It starts off with Romeo talking about another girl that he's obsessed with, and then he goes to the party and then
gets told he can't have Juliet.
And
that switches his obsession. So it's not a story. And I suppose that one of the reasons I wanted to start these sonnets was to have a look at them from this point of view and to see what they were really about, because generally, if you've been told something and taught something about Shakespeare, it's not a whole truth, and sometimes it's not a truth at all. So if you ever get told that Romeo and Juliet is a story about love, it's not. It's about lust and tragedy and parental rules pushing kids into things that, rather than stopping them doing the thing that they're trying to stop them from in the first place, I guess. We're kind of coming to an end because we've been talking for 40 minutes about, well, not just the sonnet, Shakespeare in general, which is a good summing up. Is there anything else you would like to say about the sonnets of Shakespeare?
We had just about Shakespeare as a writer today. We had It's been confirmed that Joe Cornish from the Adam
That's
and Joe
it.
duo wrote it. Jacques on Twitter told us. So you were right
Excellent.
with that, Mark.
I'm very, very clever, you see. That's why.
That's well done. It took 18 months, but we have proven your clever and nobility.
Yay! So final view on the sonnets or Shakespeare before I get you to read the final sonnet.
Very glad we did this because I was one of those people who thought that it was love's poems because that's what I was taught in school, and that's the ones that we've Sonnet 115, is it 59? One of those that is always read as one of the greatest love poems in English history. I can't remember now.
115.
115, 119, one of those.
115 is those lines that I before have writ July.
What was 119? Was it 119 then? See, there's too many of these. It's quite hard to keep track. I don't know, but there's like a few that
get held up as being
get cited and held up as the
118.
ultimate love poems. It might have been that one actually.
118 is I don't know, maybe not.
I'm quite glad we that's weird. I just got a secondary people broadcast thingy joined, but I can't see anyone. Never mind. I learned a lot about Shakespeare and the sonnets and the misconceptions we not only have, but the misconceptions we are taught by teachers and lecturers, people who should know that these are not love poems, and just still teach them as that. And I'm happy that I know better now, and sad that I went through school being taught something that cannot possibly be more wrong. But there we go.
There we go. I think that's a good point. So basically, don't trust teachers, don't trust your parents, don't trust anyone in authority. God, we're becoming quite libertarian. This isn't good.
That's a good lesson anyway. If anyone gives you information, check it first before you.
Always check. Otherwise, you'll sound like an idiot, and that's not good. I think you should read Sonnet 154, the final sonnet.
I will read. One last time. Gonna screw up now. It's live. We can't edit out mistakes.
No, I know. I screwed up a little on the intro. Damn it.
Sonnet 154. The little love god lying once asleep, led by his side his heart-inflaming brand, whilst many nymphs that vowed chaste life to keep came tripping by. But in her maiden hand the fairest votary took up that fire which many legions of true hearts had warmed. And so the general of hot desire was sleeping by a virgin hand disarmed. This brand she quenched in a cool well by which from love's fire took heat perpetual, growing a bath and healthful remedy for man diseased. But I, my mistress' thrall, came there for cure, and this by that I prove, love's fire heats water, water cools not love. I did the 154 sonnets, and I still read it as prove and not prov.
Too many syllables, bad you. That was Sonnet 154, read beautifully by Thierry there. I have been Mark Chesley, and for the final time, you can follow me on Twitter @InEarEnt.
And I have been Thierry Hillis, and you can follow me on Twitter @SoundOfSeagulls. And if you have any ideas on what we should do next, do let us know. We are open to suggestions within the realm of literature and writing in the wider sense, because really, if you've been with us the entire time, you know that about 95% of this podcast has been about Doctor Who and how much we hate other TV show writers.
We really need to write our own TV show.
We do.
Final plug for In-Ear. This podcast is done through In-Ear Entertainment. It's a company that I set up and Thierry works with. He's my second in command. We create and publish audiobooks for up-and-coming writers. We also do free-to-download podcasts. So this is one of the podcasts. There's Supermarket Matters, which is a sitcom, and there's soon, hopefully, to be a drama, but we're working on that. That's Thierry's project, so I won't talk about that too much now. He's deep in stealth mode, as they call it.
We will reveal that as and when we are ready. Well, hopefully soon.
Hopefully soon. So please do check out inearentertainment.com, and there's links to all of our social media profiles there, and a contact us, so send us an email, because we'd like to hear from you. I've been Mark Chatterley.
I have been Thierry Hillis.
And we shall not see you again for another sonnet. They're all gone.
It's
Bye.
all over now. Bye-bye, people.